Greetings, Bat family. Welcome back to Holy BatCast, brought to you by Real Fans for Real Movies. Make sure you visit our website, holybatcast.com, and find us on social media, on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, or YouTube. Just search for Holy BatCast. You'll find us. If you love the show, you want to help support us, you can do that on Patreon. You can go to patreon.com/holybatcast. And as always, a big ol' thank you to you guys out there who've done that. It means the world to us. I know you don't have to, but it really does mean a lot that you feel the need to support the show in that way, and it makes our lives so much easier. So big ol' thank you to our patrons. You guys are amazing. We're also part of the Real Fans Podcast Network, so if you're looking for other shows to enjoy, you can check those out at rf4rm.com. And as always, I'm your Bat host, Andy DiGenova. You can follow me on Twitter or on Instagram. It's just my name, Andy DiGenova. Now, this episode, we're going to talk about shocking the Batman. Who'd have known? Are you kidding me? But it's going to be a little different because I have a couple special guests. And I want to get some different opinions on the film. I want to hear what some other big Bat fans think of it. These are two of the biggest Batman fans I know. You probably have heard them. You've definitely heard them on this show back in the olden days. But you heard them when we used to co-host the Batman universe together. So big shout out to the Batman universe. Hope you guys are doing great out there. But these are my two old co-hosts from that. And there's a new Batman movie, so we're texting about it. So we might as well talk about it. So a little reunion episode for anybody who used to listen to that old show. So first of all, down there in Southern California, I got to welcome my pal, Brian Crosby. Hey, Brian.
Hey. How's it going? Good to be back talking about the Bat once again.
I know. It's like old times. You remember how to do it?
I'll do my best. No promises.
You'll just slip back into it like an old pair of pants. You'll be fine. Also joining us, it is, I think he's out in Colorado now, aren't you?
Yeah,
yeah,
that's right.
All right, back in Colorado. It's the other Jamie. And I'll tell you, I've already had to deal with some jealousy from Jamie Drewley. He's like,
I know. Well, he can let me sub in for just this one time. I mean, he's clearly dominating in terms of that talk. So,
yeah.
This is just like, the fun sub day. The sub doesn't really know what's going on. Just gonna come in here and just, study hour and have some fun Bat talk for a little bit.
Good. So it's the other Jamie, the other Jamie in my life. It's Jamie McGough. Hey, Jamie.
Hey, buddy. It's great to talk with you guys again. And that's a good point, Andy. Like asking whether or not we know how to do this before we actually get into it. It's like, do you know what you're doing? Like, well, it's talking Batman, so we should. But
it comes naturally. Yeah.
You got to bust that old podcaster voice once again.
That's right.
We got to throw out some rumors and go #confirmed.
That's right. Absolutely.
Every once in a while, that'll come up on the show, and it's just like a flood of feelings and emotions every time I hear #confirmed. I'm like, oh man, a simpler time, a different time.
Mostly us running back to the office to dissect the Ben Affleck Batman picture in high definition and zooming in and changing colors and whatnot.
Oh my God, that was so fun. Wasted a whole day of work just looking at one picture of Batman.
Yeah, I was gonna say that was truly a day where I could say like we should have just done a holiday pay day for that one, because I don't think there was a lick of work done that day. That was true donation.
It was amazing. Anyway, before we get to the Batman, I got to give a shout out also to our sponsor, Manscaped. Did you guys know I got a sponsor now? Official.
I did. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
So I gotta give it up for Manscaped, and I've got to announce and share that they got a new line of products. It is their Ultra Premium Collection. Oh, it's for your not so private parts. It's just a hygiene routine with your favorite manly scents. It's all in one skin and hair care. It's for every day. Covers you from head to toe. So it's trusted, but Manscaped is trusted below the waist, but now you can trust them with everything else. So join the 4 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped by going to manscaped.com for 20% off and free shipping with our promo code BATSCAPED. That's BATSCAPED. Use that BATSCAPED code because not only are you buying great products, you are also getting 20% off and you're supporting our show, which would be really great. So yeah, this new premium collection, I'm still waiting for mine. It has not arrived yet, but once it is, I'll report back. I'll let you know, guys know how it is. But this is like traditional deodorant. This is shampoo. This is body wash. There's all kinds of good stuff in here. What else do we got? Body spray, lotion, lip balm. So yeah, Manscaped tends to focus more on the bathing suit parts, and they do a great job. But now, guess what? Head to toe, everything. And guys, I don't know if you guys have jumped on the Manscaped bandwagon yet. I don't know if you have, but
I haven't yet, but I'm excited that they have new tools to take outside of the Batcave now. You know
exactly.
what I'm saying?
I have not either, but I anxiously await my set.
Okay, good. I I'm not just telling you this because they're telling me to tell you this. I really do use it, and it's great stuff. It's really good stuff. And now I got to try all this new stuff they've coming out with. I could always use new body wash, new deodorant. So hey, Manscaped, thanks for making it easier, one-stop shopping. But yeah, you can use all this stuff. Again, get 20% off and free shipping with Batscaped. Try it all. And this again, this new product launch is called Ultra Premium Collection. So you can get the normal collection, but now try the Ultra Premium Collection. Please and thank you.
So Andy, your listeners are going to think that we don't normally talk about our individual manscaping when the three of us are together, but that's very common. I think we cover that ground all the time.
I know, as well you should. That's best practices, you know.
The distance keeps us apart, but our manscaping and Batman talk are what bring us back together every time.
100%.
They're lifelong bonds between buddies.
The dynamic duo, you might say.
Yes, yeah. All right. Well, Manscaped.com. Check them out. Let's talk about the Batman, as if we haven't talked about it enough. But we were texting about it. I was very interested to hear your guys' opinions, and then Brian's like, I want to talk about this movie, and I was like, great, let's do it, let's make it happen. And I was like, I hope we can get McGough to join too. And so this feels great. I've made my opinions on the movie. I've shared them over the past couple episodes, so I don't think I have a lot new to say, but I'm very curious to share your guys' take. And when there's a new Batman movie out, I'll tell you, people, especially listeners of Holy BatCast, don't get tired of hearing about it. So what the heck? They want to hear more opinions on it, and we got them. So without further ado, let's get some second opinions on the Batman.
Yeah, it truly is one of those things that I every time one of these movies comes out, I listen to so many different opinions just to like hear what the consensus is. And I'm curious what you guys have heard about this movie. I think, Andy, when you initially discussed it, the spoiler-free episode, you were saying that by and large you were seeing just resounding positive approval, like best Batman movie ever. Is that still what you guys are hearing, or Brian, what have you guys been hearing?
Yeah, I mean, I've definitely seen a fair share of that. I mean, it seems to be. I've yet to see anybody that doesn't like it. I think it seems like people like it to varying degrees. There are, some that thought, hey, this was really cool. This was a great effort. I really liked the noir detective thing. And then all the way up to, this is the greatest thing of all time. Best Batman movie ever, and I for me personally, I don't know that I'm ready to crown it that, but it's, I think, Jaime, I think you were the one that said it has the new Batman movie smell still on it. I can't remember who said it, but I thought that was a very apropos, description, because you do, when you're watching, I mean, there's so much excitement, right? You're just, I mean, even to the point where the night before, my son and I are like, this time tomorrow, we will have seen it. We will have seen it.
Yep.
We'll know everything. We'll know all the secrets that we've been wanting to know about.
I'll tell you, the night before the movie, it felt like Christmas Eve. Like, where I was like, all I got to do is go to sleep and fall asleep, and then it'll be the right day. Then it'll be time to see New Batman. Like, I literally felt that way.
And it was, I'll say it was, and we'll get to this probably a little later, but it was great to see it with my sons, because this was the first time they had gotten the experience of being there opening night, seeing a Batman movie for the first time. Something that, I go back to 1989, 12 years old, sitting there with my Batman hat and shirt and just psyched out of my mind. They've missed that. Like they didn't even get that with the Nolan films, because they were still too young to really, I mean, those were a little, what I thought, I thought those were darker until I had seen this one, but now they're older, and it was cool to see their reaction to it, to getting to experience all that for the first time too.
Yeah, and when you're going into a movie like this too with this much excitement, because I think it honestly was since BVS that I had this, since I felt this excited about a Batman movie. I mean, Justice League, I was excited, but there was already so much like stinkiness going on in the air about that movie. It was really hard, and I think we were all apprehensive. So BVS was the one that we were like, what is this going to be like? It was like there was rumors of standing ovations and things like that. So, I hadn't heard a ton about this movie before going in, but it's tough because, as you say, Brian, like it has a new Batman smell. Like this movie had scenes in it that after they happen, you have to like bring yourself back down to kind of rate the movie, or kind of reinvest yourself into a movie in a normal status, because it has some things right in it that really work, and you have to like bring yourself off that Batman cloud nine of going like, holy crap, they nailed that, and then still apply some sense of logic to the rest of the movie, because when they get stuff right like that, we all are just like foaming at the mouth, to see them get things, that feel authentic, have that gravity. And this movie definitely has a lot of that. And so, especially in the beginning, like the first hour, there's so much of that. And so, yeah, like that, overall as a film, I will say, kind of trying to do a little bit more the Nolan thing, or like the Joker thing that they've been doing, to say that to exist in this kind of universe and this type, I think, Matt Reeves did a great job. Like, I think it has a lot of gravity. There's some serious badassery Batman moments in it. And so, yeah, like there was a lot of excitement for me and everybody I saw it with in that regard. And yeah, I was hearing even opinions like my brother. I didn't know how he was going to rate it. And then I talked to him like a week later. I was like, so did you like the Batman? I didn't even get to talk to him. And he was like, liked it better than the Nolan trilogy. So I was like, okay, yeah, it's all over the place.
Yeah, wow. So, I mean, yeah, obviously I spend a lot more time around huge Batman, or at least online. I spend a lot of time with other Batman fans, on Twitter because of this show. And those are the folks who you see like, oh, best Batman movie ever, best movie ever, things like that. And so there is a lot of that. I do think that because now that the movie has been out for whatever, week and a half, going on 2 weeks, the general public is seeing it, and there's a little more measured reaction. Everyone still seems to like it. I've seen very few people who hate it. There've been a handful, but it's a tiny percentage. But I do think that from like people who don't just live and breathe Batman, you're seeing a little more like, oh yeah, I liked it. This things that were a little more, down to earth. But I think that, when we were talking about it and you guys were like, oh, what did you think? What did you think? Even then I felt bad that I couldn't say, oh my God, it's a home run. It's the best thing ever. And that's kind of how it's been for me, is like, cause I really like it, and I liked it even more the second time. I think I told you guys that, but the fact that I'm not on cloud nine the way a lot of the fans were, I feel guilty, and I feel like I'm kind of missing out on some of the party because of it. But at the end of the day, like, I can only feel how I can feel about the movie.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And I'm with you. I did on the second watch, I did like it a lot better. And I don't really even know why that is. Maybe it's because I was able to just relax and enjoy the movie and not feel like I'm trying to hang on every last word and catch every last Easter egg. Like the secrets had been revealed, so I could just take the popcorn and the drink and just enjoy the movie.
Yes.
But I definitely did enjoy it the second time around, and even the things that I felt kind of bothered me in the first go around. Didn't bother me as much. I still think there are, some things that I wish they had done, and the ending being one of them. But overall, I really enjoyed it. I thought it was fun. It, certainly was dark. In fact, I saw a post the other day. A buddy of mine was showing the progression of darkness.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah.
Have you seen this?
Yes.
And then it gets to it starts in 66, and then each gets progressively darker until you get to the Batman. And he's bathed in shadow, and then this is the Batman sequel 2025, and it's just a black square. That cracked me up. I thought that was hilarious. But no, what I really enjoyed was that they found a new way in. And and Andy, you've said it on your show before. There are certainly some tropes or some storytelling devices that we've seen before in other Batman movies, and certainly in other movies. But finding a new way in at this point to this character without totally reinventing it can be a little tough. And and certainly one of the hallmarks we've talked about for forever, as long as Batman's been around, is Batman as the world's greatest detective. And we had not really seen that. We've seen inklings of it, even going back to Batman 66, where he's kind of putting together the Riddler's clues, or Batman 89, where he's trying to solve the Joker's chemical compound. And there are certainly moments of the detective that we see, but never quite to this level on film, I don't think. Where it's less about the pow bang boom action of it all, and more cerebral, and him really trying to put it all together. Although the fact that he did know a rat with wings was a bat was a little mind-blowing.
Yeah, it almost put him in second place as world's greatest.
I was like,
detective.
wow.
Not quite the world's greatest.
He's learning to be the world's greatest detective. He's getting there. He is solving clues, but he's still got some work to do.
Yeah.
But I do agree with you, and I think that a lot of people agree with that. Is one of the best things about this movie is that we have had elements of Batman as a detective in almost every Batman movie, and I think that's something that a lot of fans downplay. You just gave a couple examples, because there are elements of that in every Batman movie that I can think of, but it's never the focus. And I think that that's what fans have been asking for is, no, I want the detective story. And this is the movie that finally said, great, then here it is. And I think that is great, because to really focus on that and spend the whole time with him as Batman investigating these crimes is a different approach, and it gives the movie a different feel.
Yeah, I mean, he really had to be Batman most of the movie so you could even have the time for it. And I think you pointed out at one point, Andy, it was a little bit to the sacrifice of the action, which I would agree with you. But I mean, this is probably arguably one of the most Batman heavy Batman movies that we've seen. I mean, he really is, like, maybe short of the old 66 movie, I'm not sure, but like, he really is Batman almost the entire time. Like, there's only a couple of scenes where he's Bruce Wayne, and even when he's Bruce Wayne, he's still Batman, just without the suit. So like, they gave it the time at least to be able to do that. I would have liked a little bit more action out of it, but it was cool to see them really take that challenge, especially with kind of how audiences are nowadays. I think they really, like, their patience seems to be thinner, so to do something that's kind of as challenging as a little bit of a slow burn detective story and expect people to still dig it, and by and large they did, that's a big kudos to them.
No, I think that's a really good point, actually. And I'll go on record and say this is the most time Batman has spent in costume since Batman 66. 100%.
Yeah.
Let's take a step back, because I want you guys to just give your overall thoughts on the movie. You've kind of said a little bit here and there, but we're already falling down some rabbit holes. So I want you just kind of walking out. We've texted each other. Overall thoughts on the Batman. Brian, go for it.
I really enjoyed it. I thought it was, the length of the movie didn't bother me. I thought it was a lot of fun. Honestly, Andy, like I said, you've mentioned some of the things, the connections to the Dark Knight, or at least some of those things that we've seen before. As obvious as they seem to be now, after hearing you say that, it didn't bother me in the heat of the moment while I was watching it. So I really enjoyed it. I don't think anything will ever top Batman 89 for me. And then after that, for me, it kind of slips into, really Batman Begins and The Dark Knight. So, but I think this is in that top category, or in that top tier of Batman films for me. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was great. I thought, the casting across the board was phenomenal. That if there's a weak link to me, it's maybe Andy Serkis as Alfred. He didn't do a ton for me, and maybe it's just because we didn't get enough of him. Mm-hmm. But overall, I didn't get the relationship between Andy Serkis and Robert Pattinson the way I've felt Alfred and Batman connect in past films. With Michael Caine and Christian Bale, like I really felt a very tangible bond between them from the very get-go, and certainly Michael Gough and Michael Keaton. I felt that from them. I didn't get that quite as powerful in this movie. So if there is a weak link, I think it's him. But overall, I really enjoyed it. Solid movie. I enjoyed watching it a second time, and I'll definitely revisit it again.
Nice. Yeah, the Alfred observation is apt, and it's interesting. It's like they only had Andy Serkis for like a week. So, and I'm speculating. I don't know if that's true, but when you see it, you go, oh, it seems like they only had a little bit of time with Andy Serkis. And it is weird that when that relationship starts out, it starts out almost adversarial. It's like they don't start out as like partners, equals in a very trusting, loving relationship. It's like their very first conversation is a spat, and that's kind of how they are through the whole movie. And so I think that maybe that's an element that's missing, is sort of the warmth between the two of them before they can have a disagreement.
Right.
So, right. Yeah, it's just interesting. Anyway, Jamie, what about you? Just overall thoughts.
Yeah, no, I want to comment on that really quick. It's funny that it's a good point. I didn't even think about that. But yeah, it does make sense to me, at least in terms of like, this is sort of like, we're just after the angsty teen Bruce Wayne, like he's more mature than that. So he's not going to like blow up sort of thing, but they're still keeping their distance maybe. Like, so it sort of makes sense because, I mean, even in the conversation where he's like, you're not my father, I mean, yeah. That's like a really hard line that I don't think we've seen from even Bruce Wayne in any of the roles. I mean, even when there has been distrust or discomfort between Alfred and Bruce, there's still like, it's always been like a father-son relationship. Like, so, it has never gone to that point where it's like almost a rejection. So it sort of makes sense, but I agree. Like, I don't know if it was stronger because of that. It sort of makes sense. But yeah, I agree with a lot that you said, Brian. I did feel it was long. I was feeling the length of it. I was having flashbacks of the third, the Lord of the Rings, the Return of the King at the end, like where you get 4 endings and you're like, is this it? Is this it? And for me, it wasn't so much about the story per se. It was just, there was this particular scene where he goes into Edward's, well, it's not Nigma, right? It's Nash, right?
Nashton.
Into his apartment, and that cop stops him, and he's like, "What are you doing?" And he's like having this talk. I'm like, that was a moment where I was literally taken out of the film. I'm like, wow, like we don't need this much like exposition before this scene, like how many times are we gonna have the like, what are you doing? He's the Batman, you can't be trusted. Like we don't. It just doesn't need to be there as much as it was. It just needed to be a little bit tighter, in those kinds of scenes. So it's like, whereas I think somebody had compared like Nolan's, trilogy, it's pretty tight. He doesn't waste time with those kinds of scenes. And I understand if there's a purpose, but I felt like it was a little bit loose in that regard. Overall, agree. The casting was awesome. I mean, Colin Farrell, like freaking hats off, dude. Completely unrecognizable. Delivered a Joker from a Joker, and an Oswald from the comics we've never seen, that we've wanted. It was like that was straight up out of the comics. It had, again, some of those big scenes, the entry scene, even though I've seen it, in the trailers a bunch of times with Batman beating the crap out of that thug, and the entry of the Batmobile. I mean, those had some awesome, stellar, just, over the top, what you want, kind of the tenacity of those sort of intros. And then, again, I think it just sort of like, it could have been a little bit tighter. But I do also love, and especially going back and kind of reviewing Long Halloween, because it's been a long time since I read it, how much tribute there was to that. And it's a pretty complex story. So kind of getting all these players in there together and making it work, it didn't feel convoluted. So big kudos to that. So yeah, I mean, overall, very, quite strong, I think. Like, I feel you, Andy. It's like it doesn't have, I mean, I hadn't seen it a second time, and I do want to, but it didn't have so much draw where I'm like, I got to see that tomorrow. Like The Dark Knight, I remember I was like, I got to see this as soon as possible. That had that like insanity where I was just like, dude, I can't get enough of this. This doesn't have it there for me, the whole movie, but it does have scenes like that. So I will say that in terms of my expectation, it met my expectation in terms of what I was hoping for, but it wasn't more than that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I want to say something about what Brian said, because, when we were texting, I shared with you kind of my thoughts about, there were just a lot of scenes to me that felt a little too on the nose from The Dark Knight. And I've covered that on this show, and I've gotten a fair amount of blowback because I said it, but, cause of course, right. But, I will say, much like what Brian was saying, is on my second viewing, stuff like that bothered me less. On the first viewing, I found it distracting. It pulled me out of the movie because I was like, I've seen this scene before. But on the second viewing, because you've already gotten past that of like, oh, well, I know what it is. I know what's coming. You're not seeing it for the first time. You can just sort of settle in and just go with it. And so those things I found a lot less distracting, and I was able to enjoy the movie even more the second time because of that. So It does benefit from multiple viewings. I certainly enjoyed it a second time. I don't think I'll get to it a third time, just because I have a 3-week-old baby now, and that's not going to happen. But like, I'm happy to revisit it. I look forward to when it's on HBO Max. I'm going to buy it day one. So like, I still really like it. And you mentioned that there, even if the whole movie as a whole isn't like, oh my God, it's the best thing ever, you said there are certainly Batman moments in there that are. So I want to hear what those are. I'm curious as to what those Batman moments where you're like, oh, hell yeah, like that's what I'm talking about. Jaime, you mentioned it first, so why don't you share some of those?
Yeah, I mean, the Batmobile was a big one. I thought that was just great. Like it was in the night, it was like in the darkness, and then the engine starts up, and then you're getting these subtle lights. Like it was its own creature of the night. And as we've discussed before on this podcast way back in the day, the Batmobile is its own character. It's like it needs its own introduction as well, and they delivered on that. I think just some of the detective scenes with him and Gordon working together, even when they were going into the old asylum, and the writing on the walls and them talking, like I was just like, man, this is really cool to just see this really kind of creepy, dark, where they're discovering the scenes of these clues, and we get that a lot in the comics, and I don't think cinematically we've gotten that a whole lot. It seems to be like most of the time cinematically we've gotten a lot of, where he shows up and there's already a crime taking place or something like that. Like it's Batman showing up and it's already hitting the fan kind of thing. So to have sort of like that, these clues, Riddler, had them left and waiting. It was like it was a great delivery on the Riddler, a real world Riddler who had orchestrated all these plans in that way. So that was another thing that I think really, even though visually I'm like, okay, this, somebody pointed out that it's, the Zodiac killers, like almost straight up.
Mm.
And yeah, I argued with, I think it was my brother or somebody that were like, oh, well, it doesn't, maybe the derby and the hat and the cane don't make as much sense. And like, if you have a Catwoman with ears and a Batman with ears and a symbol, then you can have a Riddler with a derby. Like that doesn't make any sense.
I completely agree. There's no reason not to.
Yeah, and I figured that you were on that page too, and so yeah, like that. So some of those moments were really cool, where you're just kind of seeing like, these scenes that we've seen a long time in the comics, and so the slow burn kind of allowed you to have that time where it's not like 1,000 cops in the scene all at once. You get kind of these really creepy slow moments where they're figuring it out.
Yeah. I'll just, one quick thing is, you said they were in an old asylum. That was actually Wayne Manor.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yep.
Wayne
yeah.
Manor,
yeah. Just before we get emails. But yeah, I mean, but it's a great point.
It was Wayne Manor that was converted to the asylum, right?
It was converted to an orphanage.
Orphanage.
And then the orphanage burnt down. And if you read, there's a prequel novel. The prequel novel, the Riddler's the one who burns it down. And so now it's abandoned. And so the only people there are like drop heads who are, squatting in there.
Right. Okay, sorry. See, this is what happens when I haven't watched it a second time.
That's okay. It's fine.
Thank you.
Of course. Brian, what about you? Like some great Batman moments in the movie?
Sure. Yeah, and actually, you know what, Jamie, I actually didn't pick up on that being Wayne Manor either on the first viewing. It was the second viewing that I got that, because one thing I really, and Andy, I will answer your question, but one thing I really is the way this movie throws kind of a grenade of Batman stuff into the room, and there are a lot of different threads that can be picked up on here, and I think that's what's kind of exciting to me.
That's a great point.
About the world building that's happened.
Yeah.
Because I think if there's anything that I love more than anything, it was just Gotham. Outside of the one shot where it was very clearly the same Wayne Tower shot that we've seen, where he's riding the motorcycle across the bridge from Chicago. Outside of that shot, I didn't feel like I was in a city I've been before. It felt like Gotham. It felt like Gotham City was its own place. Arkham felt unique. Obviously what happened to Wayne Manor was unique. Wayne Tower felt really gothic and cool, and a lot of great environments that we haven't seen before. Even the makeshift Batcave, as the Wayne terminal building, or Wayne terminal down there. So a lot of cool world building environments, and I think. So what I mean about kind of the Batman grenade is, as I've discussed the movie with people after the fact, and we start speculating about what could be coming next, there are so many great logical next steps, whether it's Court of the Owls, or whether it's Robin, or whether it's, Catwoman returning from Bloodhaven, or even what Bloodhaven means, or obviously the end of the film with, are we allowed to say who was in the asylum?
Yeah, everyone's seen it. We're just speaking freely.
Okay. The Joker at the end, and thank goodness they didn't kill anybody off.
Yeah.
At least, at least the main kind of characters. Falcone, sure, but like, hey, Penguin's still in play, Catwoman's still in play, Riddler's still in play, Batman's obviously still in play, and that's awesome for where we can go from here. And so that's exciting to me. So I think, so just to answer your question though, in terms of great Batman stuff. So I mentioned my complaint, if you will, about Alfred, and it's not a huge complaint. It's a minor quibble, but where we didn't get the relationship between Batman and Alfred, I think the Batman-Gordon relationship makes up for it. Mm-hmm. And that's where I felt the almost father-son relationship was between the two of them. A mutual respect, but also, when Batman needed a reprimand, Gordon didn't hesitate. He didn't hesitate to go, hey, this is not the way. You can't just beat up a bunch of cops while you're here in Gotham, the GCPD headquarters here. So they really had a great buddy relationship, or like I said, even a pseudo father-son relationship between the two. Gordon has definitely seen some action. and Bruce is young. You know, Bruce. I will say, even and I know they said it in the film, and Matt Reeves has said it that Batman's 2 years in. I don't know that I buy that. He doesn't feel like a 2-year Batman to me. It feels like it feels very year one to me, even though because I mean we're not seeing the three versions of Bruce Wayne that exist. You know, and he hasn't learned yet to be the playboy Bruce Wayne. He's just an angsty, you know, you said it, Jamie. He's kind of an angsty teen still, or an angsty 20-something. And we see the physical manifestation of that at night as the Batman. So it feels very early in his career, even though I know it's technically supposed to be the second year. And, you know, when you say year two, to me, you know, I can't help but go to Detective Comics, you know, year two, Todd McFarlane, and Batman's Batman in year two, like big blue cape, you know, flowing. And I know, you know, I guess we're not getting the big blue cape, but year two to me is a more fleshed out Batman, and I feel like we were quite there. Like the Batmobile felt like he just put it together. Like this may have been his first time really testing it out, even. So it all felt very early, which again, that speaks to my excitement of the world building. Like, where can we go from here? And not even to mention the fact that, you know, in a very no man's land kind of way, Gotham is completely flooded. So presumably that Wayne terminal also is flooded. So does that mean he has to go back out to Wayne Manor because his manor's in, you know, his family's estate is in ruins? And could that be a proper Batcave? You know, so all of these little threads that can be pulled on for the rest of this series and also through, you know, whatever's coming in HBO Max, that's exciting. Like the world building for what could come is awesome.
Yeah, when we were texting and you mentioned that, I didn't even think of that the first viewing, is because we agreed. We're like, oh, you know, we'd like to see him in Wayne Manor. We'd like to see the Batcave under Wayne Manor. And you said, yeah, but that terminal's probably flooded. And I was like, oh, that's a good point. I sure hope that's true, because it would be great. As long as everybody's okay, as long as all these fictional characters are okay. But that would be a great in-story reason to get him back out to Wayne Manor, you know, where and fix up his old house and get a real Batcave out there.
Yeah. And it was funny because, you know, I could have sworn there were like set pics that we thought were pictures of the Batcave, and I don't know what that was.
All the ones I saw were that essentially it is the Batcave in this film, but the terminal under Wayne Tower. That was every picture and concept art I saw was that, because it is for all intents and purposes a Batcave. It's just located someplace different.
Yeah. But really, get him in a cave.
Right. You guys both mentioned the Batmobile, and the Batmobile has been a subject of some controversy. So I want to hear what you guys think of the design, and if you want it to evolve in the next film. I think I know the answer, but just curious. What do you think, Brian?
Oh, well, I mean, you know where I come down on this. Yeah, definitely want to see it evolve. You know, I do. I was never even a big Tumblr fan, to be honest. You know, I gravitate towards that more bat-themed Batmobile. You know, Batman '89 is still kind of the peak of Batmobile design for me. I love '66. I love the Snyder Batmobile as well. I thought it was very cool and kind of a cool hybrid between kind of more of a bat-themed vehicle and kind of Tumblr-esque, more real-world. But knowing where this Bruce Wayne is at in his journey, it made sense. You know, I thought it was interesting that, you know, we don't have Lucius Fox here. You know, we've got, you know, essentially Bruce and Alfred, you know, building all this crap. You know, you can see the weld lines, you can see the rivets. Like, he put this thing together himself. And so given that, I thought it felt powerful. It felt violent. It felt what's the right word? Aggressive, like almost like an animal, even though it looked like a souped up, you know, muscle car. But you know, so I didn't hate it, knowing where we are in Batman's journey, but definitely, you know, hope to see more evolution towards bat motif, which, you know, I love the bat motif. You know, the squirrel suit, I still don't like the squirrel suit thing. And, like, you know, like give me proper bat glider wings, you know. But again, I know where they're at. Like, I hope the next film starts to move towards more of that.
Yeah. Jamie, what about you?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it definitely, there's so much of the design of this movie I mean, Catwoman literally had like a hat.
A ski mask. Yeah.
Yeah, ski mask like that, you know. So there's a lot of that stuff where you're like, hey, you know, if you do it clever, you know, do a clever enough job, it makes sense. This car is badass and aggressive, but yeah, I mean, if it stayed like this, I'd be like, no, you know, what are you doing? The Batmobile shouldn't look like any car that exists. You know, it should be like, what is that? You know, it should be just something next level. So it's totally cool that it looks like a car that's badass, but that car looks like it exists. You know, I mean, it does, you know, and even the 66, you know, it's like they took I forget what the original car, the Futura, right? Or something. But, yeah. You know, what's his face? Barris, he took that, you know, and he made it something else, you know, and it had enough, you know, that kind of, it had pizzazz, right?
Yeah.
It's different. Yep. But it looked like, you know, beyond a regular car. And so it definitely needs to evolve. You know, I get why some people might hate it, but, you know, I mean, to me, I was even thinking about it. I'm like, I think this is probably, except for like the Clooney suit in Batman and Robin, my least favorite Batsuit. But it's also just because it's not about aesthetics almost at all. It's about function, but, you know, it's like, it's about just him kind of hodgepodging stuff together. And so, yeah, like you have to be willing to sacrifice some of the style to tell the story. And so I think that it found a good place where it's not, you know, I don't hate the way the Batsuit looks. But, you know, like I was looking at some of the toys because as we do, you got to check them out. And, you know, it's just like, I want to go back and just buy more, you know, BVS Batsuit toys because that looks like Batman, you know, like that's the Batman figure I want. This suit, it's like, it's all right, but it just doesn't have, you know, the years of design and everything going with it. So yeah, I know we were talking about the Batmobile, so I'll get back to that.
No, I mean, but they go hand in hand. I think I'm interested. That's interesting that both of you said that because I mean, this is one thing where we're all in sync on. I didn't love the Batmobile when they revealed it, and then I kind of made my peace with it and said, yeah, it is what it is. It's fine. It's never going to be my favorite Batmobile, but where they leave this movie, it would be very easy. I mean, because it's pretty damaged in that chase, and I don't think we see it again after that scene. It'd be very easy for him to commit to it, make some alterations, and make it battier. What's funny is I recorded another friend's podcast earlier today, and we were talking about the Batmobile, and I used the same word, pizzazz. It lacks pizzazz. Like, give me a little style, you know?
Yeah.
So
Batman's all about that branding,
right?
Man. You don't have to hold back on that. He's gonna put it in.
I think that's what's interesting about that is kind of where he lands at the end of the film, you know, and this is what Bale's Batman hinted at, you know, is that, you know, becoming more of a symbol and knowing what that means when somebody sees that driving down the street, that it can't just look like another car. People need to know that it's Batman, you know. One of my favorite shots in Batman Returns is when Batman drives past the Penguin doing his research, and he's in the snow, and he's just kind of driving through that slushy snow.
Oh right, man, slow. I love that scene. That slush haunts my dreams in the best way.
That's so funny. The second you said that, that's immediately what I thought was about that slushy snow, man. That's so weird.
They should have won an Oscar just for that slush.
It's like it's melting the snow. It's so hot. Yep. Like that car is so hot, the snow can't even stand it.
Just like my heart. It's on fire when I see it. But that shot, you know, that he's just like patrolling Gotham, and like that. I think when he starts to lean into the symbol, right? And that's where he gets by the end of the movie, Bruce as a character, that it's not just about you. It's not just about your vengeance and your lust for revenge. It is what the symbol of Batman means to the people of Gotham. And they hint at that at the beginning of the movie, right? Like the symbol in the sky, what that meant to the people who were criminals, that they just seeing the bat signal meant Batman's out there to the point where they look in the shadows and he could be around any corner and terrified. And then you take that to the very end of the movie and what the symbol of Batman means at the end and what it means for the good people of Gotham. And I think that's hopefully, it means you can lean more into that.
Yeah, agreed. And it's funny because even the bike he rides at the end, there is just enough of a bat motif that I really like the bike. It's pretty minimalist, but it's there, so I don't ask for a lot. Just give me a little something. And I feel the same way about the suit as what you were saying, Jamie, is like, yeah, it's fine. I made my peace with it. When I first saw it, I went, oh, really? Is that it? I was kind of shocked. And then, we saw more of it and I was like, okay, it's cool. And in the movie, I think it works, but it's still, even though it works and I like it fine. And, I bought the 10-inch pop figure of it and it's sitting up here on my shelf. So I like it well enough for that. But, it's still like, as far as Batsuits goes, it's really low on my list. So it was just interesting that, I thought I was in the minority. So it's interesting to hear that you felt the same way.
Yeah, it's funny because I think back to even the Nolan Batsuit, and it had some clunkiness to it as well. And I remember discussing this with you, Brian, where you were like, "Oh, this is probably like one of your more favorite suits," and I'm like, I just like the utility of it, like the idea that
which one, Jamie?
So it's actually the Dark Knight suit, because the Batman Begins suit had a little bit more of the style to it, but then Nolan got more into the utility of it, right? And it's like a spelunking suit, and then it's like this, painted armor, and then, he wants to turn his head. So some of the style deteriorated, but it was in the form of function. And it was the same with the Tumbler, where I was like, the Tumbler, like, it lacks that bat pizzazz, right? It totally lacks that, but the utility of it is kind of cool. So it had that functionality where it was fine, but it doesn't have that style. And then coming off of the BVS suit, which was just like, man, they just didn't care about like Snyder didn't want to hold back the look of the suit with functionality. I mean, he wanted it to just look awesome, and Batman was kind of a beast in that. But this one, it just didn't have enough, like, well, and I told both of you, I'm like, what the hell are those, why does he have 50 pens, and when is he going to write with them on those gauntlets, because I'm like, what is that?
We got the answer. There was an image making the rounds this week of the gauntlets. Because what's funny is you said that, and I swore I saw him shoot them in the movie, and then I went in a second time, and then I couldn't find the part where I thought he shot them. So I was like, well, damn it, maybe I was wrong. Maybe I filled in that gap myself. And then there was a tweet that went viral that was literally a picture going, what the hell were these for? And so you weren't alone. Did I send it to you? I can't remember if I sent it to you. Yeah. And I was like, don't worry, Jamie, you're not alone. But there was an image going around, and I think it was from the Art of book, where it shows that it's essentially his refills for the grappling gun.
Oh, okay.
But which is like, you're like, cool, but I would have never known that.
Out of his, and the grappling gun like pops out of his like his forearm. His inner forearm. In fact, I remember one of the early products to release was the Funko Pop, and I happen to have it right here. But it's number 1189 in the Batman Funko Pop collection, and he is very clearly shooting the arrows off the top of his arms.
Yeah, I remember. You're right. In the Funko, it looks like those shoot independently.
Yeah.
I wonder if nobody told Funko and they just decided that's what they were for.
Well, they gotta be. That design always, again, another one of those threads that you can pull on. I mean, we go back to, frankly, as a kid, I never really thought about what his gauntlets did. They just looked cool. They were just like, blue gloves that had cool bat fins on the end. And then, but Nolan made him a thing, right, where he was able to use them to fight knives and swords and whatnot.
And then shoot them eventually.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, so I mean, I didn't really think about the functionality of them. I forget where I was going with this, but I mean, the design. Another one of those threads is the design is so close to the Talon designs from the Court of the Owls.
Yeah, I did think of that.
Right, so like, maybe there's something to it, maybe there's not. It's another one of those dangling threads that they could pull on if they wanted to.
Yeah, I think aesthetically, it sort of is like, again, the utility idea of it. I'm like, oh, okay, like he hasn't found the compartment for everything yet, right? Like that's fine, but honestly, it's like they're like white lines on a black suit. So I think that's why, for me, I'm like, what are these?
Yeah, they're very conspicuous, right?
Yeah, they really they kind of have a presence there, And so I was like, oh, maybe they just are extra padding, or I don't know. But so yeah, I mean, I agree with you. It doesn't need to. Generally, they don't need to follow that rule. And I think if you have to start doing that anyways, like where you have to explain what everything is, it kind of ruins it, and you start getting into that where everything has to follow a function, and I don't like that. But they do have like kind of a big I mean, I think of the first images we were getting of the stunt actors and Pattinson, in the Batsuit, and it was like the scene of him riding through the cemetery, and that we were seeing these images a couple years ago, and I'm like, what are those? Because they're they're sticking out, and so yeah, it's one of those things that it's like, oh, it's probably going to be a weird sticking point forever for me, but it's fine. Like it breaks up the suit and it gives it sort of like, it's kind of clunky, right? Like even the bat ears, they don't stick to the profile of his head. I mean, they're like spikes. I was at one point I was thinking, is he going to like put somebody's hand through one of these spikes? Like, I'm like, that would be badass. Probably a little much, but at least it kind of has like some, the functionality of it makes more sense for them to be like that. But I digress. Not everything needs to be explained, and at least again with the Batmobile, it's like it's fine. I think the only thing that didn't follow that thread of like, well, he's developing it was those contacts, which are badass.
Yeah, that was very cool.
Like, these ain't year 2 contacts, my friend. These are 10-year, Batman contacts.
All the money he had saved for his car, he spent on those contacts.
That's right. Yeah. He had to get those spikes for ears. Those contacts were a lot of dosh.
Well, and to go back to the point about like this is interesting in this movie is that like the gadgets are there, but the movie doesn't really linger on them. And so we never get a great look at the grapple gun or, so it just seems like that was not a high priority. And so that's what leaves you with questions about, the spikes on his arms. I will say it was very unexpected and very cool when he pulled that bat symbol off his chest and started using it to cut stuff. I thought that was really cool.
We had so much speculation about what that was.
Yeah.
It was the gun, the melted down gun that killed his parents, and so yeah, it was cool to see that be functional.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, like they just didn't focus really on the gadgets, which was a little bit different here.
But real quick, Andy, because on that point, it's not, we've seen a lot of gadget stuff with Batman in the past. We've seen plenty of gadgets. We've seen a lot of action. This was definitely about Batman developing his brain and his mind and being able to use that and how that informs him as a hero.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a new take. And I was thinking about that too when you were saying it feels like not year 2. I was like, I think this is just the easiest way for them to say, he hasn't been this isn't his first, rodeo here. He's been doing it a while. He's Batman most of the time. He's used to the schedule. He's comfortable being Batman, at least in some respect, but he's still very rough around the edges. He doesn't have he can fight like it. So I was like, yeah, I agree with you in the comics that he's much more polished in Batman Year 2 book, but it sort of is a quick way for them to tell the audience like, hey, we're not going to do the Bruce Wayne's, the Wayne murder. We're not going to do all that stuff. There's just enough going along, and to that point, as you're saying, like we've seen the gadgets, we've seen all this, what I like about it is, and we've discussed this so many times, is we've gotten a lot of Batman movies. Not every Batman movie has to be your Batman, and this definitely carved its name in the legacy of Batman. It's a new take, and not just in a way of just looks, but really a different way of telling the story. And it separates itself enough, I think, from the Nolan style where it is its own thing. So that's pretty cool. Andy, I got to ask you, because I haven't listened to your updated podcast with the spoilers. What was the scene that you and Jaime were talking about that really felt like the Nolan trilogy?
Oh, I mean, it's more than just one scene. There's quite a few scenes.
I thought I remember you guys saying there was like one moment where you're like, oh, you're going that way. And
well, yeah. So yeah, for me, that turning point was the first conversation with Alfred and Bruce. Because it's the very first conversation between these two characters in the movie, and Alfred starts being like, "You've got a name to uphold. You're a Wayne," and he's like, "You're not a Wayne." And I was like, I heard this conversation between Michael Caine and Christian Bale in Batman Begins. So that one wasn't from The Dark Knight; it was from Batman Begins. But that was the scene where I first got pulled out of the movie, going, "Oh, I've heard this before." And then as far as like the other things, there are a lot of other moments in the film that just, to me, were a little too close, that I found it to be a distraction on the first watch. But that was the scene, the first one, that made me go, oh, okay, I've seen this before.
Mm-hmm.
But, I agree with what you were saying, Brian, about the ending. And I think the ending is so great in that, Bruce and Batman learning what it means to be Batman, and not just to scare the bad guys, but to inspire the good guys. And I think that is such a great arc for him. And to your point, the movie, where we leave the movie, even though this is still a very quote unquote grounded and realistic take, and I've seen some fans push back at that and go, it wasn't realistic at all, it's still a comic book movie. And I'm like, Matt Reeves has said unequivocally his favorite Batman is grounded and realistic. So yes, like, it is. That's what he's trying to do. But I do think that there is enough leeway in where they leave the movie, and just with the way things are set up in the movie, that you can come back and you can push it into a little more comic booky territory without having to be so beholden to quote unquote the real world, And I think that's exciting about what the future could hold.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned earlier, Brian, all the setup of the world. And I think that's so on point, and especially in a way that, I think comic book movies are not a new thing. It's not, and especially the idea of fan service. There was a lot of fan service happening like in the wrong ways for a little while, especially I think, in the, I don't know, like the last maybe 10 years or so. I mean, not as much recently, but you'll get those Easter eggs that are like so on the nose. It's like literally the casual fan can be like, oh, that's the, training droid or whatever. And that kind of stuff, where you're like, it's an eye roll if you're a pretty dedicated fan. I get why they're doing it, but they really didn't do that in this movie. And I thought that was great, because if it's a thing that they're setting up, that if you're a pretty big fan, you kind of notice the nod, the Court of Owls stuff being one of those things where, it's like people are talking about it. And it doesn't need to be like this super underground thing. Like, I don't want to, act like, oh, well, I'm gatekeeping because they shouldn't have such obvious Easter eggs. I don't mind the obvious Easter egg, as long as it's not such a plot device where it feels like, or not a plot device, but it takes so much center stage that it feels like an ad. Like when you see those movies where they're clearly putting an ad in there, and then you're distracted because you're looking at the Pepsi logo or the Chevy logo or whatever, and you're like, okay, so in your face. They didn't really do that in this movie that much, or hardly at all. And so I think, at least in terms of the Easter eggs, it was a really cool world building movie. And 100%, I think both, somebody pointed out that the Joker, even though that's not necessarily the same world, it was like, that was like a city in like the 1970s. This seemed like a little bit more modern, but still that dirty, lived in kind of world in Gotham. And, so it just, it had a terrific feel. And any of these Batman movies that that they feel like it's some sort of a bygone era and not necessarily living in modern day, I think it really creates a good atmosphere, and I think this movie really had that.
Well, it makes it timeless, right? I mean, I think that's something that Batman '89 and Batman Returns, I think, did really well, where it kind of feels like the 30s or 40s. You got everybody in fedoras and trench coats, and but then you have this sprinkling in of technology. So I mean, even the Gotham TV show, I thought, did a really good job of that, where it felt like a world of its own. Kind of almost felt like it was late 70s. But then you see like a flip phone, and you're like, oh, okay, well, it's not really then. And this had the smartphone in it. It had technology like that was contemporary. But you still had, the kind of classic mobsters, hanging out in the seedy club and that kind of corruption. So I think that kind of Gotham world building goes a long way for me, at least, the fan. And to your point about Easter eggs, Jamie, I agree. I thought there were a lot of little drops, name drops in there, but not. I agree, not to a point of distraction. It to me showed that Matt Reeves kind of did his homework, and it was almost kind of a love letter to and comics. So, like, for example, Catwoman, Selena Kyle saying that she was going to Bloodhaven.
Mm-hmm.
Like, she's got to go somewhere, or she's going somewhere. Like, why not? Why not Bloodhaven, right?
Yeah.
Like, she could have said Metropolis or Kansas City for whatever, but she said, like, we got to pick a city. Maybe she's going to Bloodhaven. So it just it doesn't. If you know what Bloodhaven is, cool. Then you're like a fan. You're like, oh, I know. But if you don't, it doesn't make any difference. She's going somewhere else. Yeah.
I loved that. It was unexpected, and I thought it was awesome. And there were a lot of things like that were less Easter eggy, but just plot points that I wasn't expecting from the comics, like Thomas Wayne and his past with Falcone, like that from The Long Halloween. I was when they brought that up, I was like, oh wow, cool. Like you said, Reeves did his homework and he decided to make it part of this movie. Or Selena being Falcone's daughter. Like, there are just those different elements that you're like, oh, he pulled from a lot of different stories, and I love that. You talked about some of the different threads that they could do something with or not. Another one that's been talked about a lot, which I think is interesting, is there's the moment in the finale where Batman injects himself with something. It's probably adrenaline, and that's probably the way to read it, but they never say it, so there's no reason that it couldn't be picked up later, and they clarify it wasn't adrenaline, it was some sort of venom. So I've seen fans go, is that venom? Is it adrenaline? It's probably adrenaline, but because they don't specify, there's no reason it couldn't be venom later on.
They made it that glowy greenish yellow.
Yeah. I was going to say, like, you chose neon green for that color.
Yeah, exactly.
That means something. Yeah.
So it's like fun. Like, yeah, you can do something with that if you want. The Joker scene, Jamie, I know it was not your favorite.
Yeah, it just really, and it's funny, I've looked at the actor that they kind of had for that scene, and, I'm like, okay, it's kind of a unique look. I don't know what it was, but man, it just felt like so amateur to me, and I really disliked it. And like, I wish it wasn't in the movie. Like, I wish it was in the post-credit scene. I think it would have been okay in a post-credit scene. But that was probably the most fan servicey thing that I felt like just kind of dumbed down the movie, like in a bad way. Yeah. And so, I don't know how you guys felt about it, or maybe when I see it again, I'll feel a little differently, hopefully. But yeah, I like the setup, and I like that it was different. It's hard to do Joker anymore without thinking of, Hamill, or thinking of, him in the Dark Knight. It's like, it's just so a new take, but not strong for me.
Brian, what did you think of the Joker tease?
I didn't dislike it as much. I didn't mind it. And I think more what I'm, I don't really know Barry Keoghan, I believe his last name is, from the Eternals. I don't really know him from anything outside of Eternals, but I'm open to seeing what they want to do with it. What I do like, and it's not so much what they showed in the movie. I like the way Matt Reeves has talked about his take on the Joker. Again, trying to find your way into these characters that hasn't been done, before is challenging. And going back to, Jerry Robinson and Bob Kane and kind of the original creation of the Joker, and leaning into Conrad Veidt and the man who laughs and the guy who has the disease that to the point where he physically is unable to stop smiling. They kind of hinted at that in the Joker, where he laughed spontaneously, but in that original creation for the Joker was he smiled compulsively. He could not help but not smile. He was always smiling. And if you watch any clips from that film, The Man Who Laughs, it is creepy, to watch. And so I'm open for that kind of and I think, Jack Nicholson, his Joker kind of had that perma smile thing going on, wasn't a disease, but I'm interested to hear how Matt Reeves goes back to the original creation of the Joker to pull inspiration and what that could mean in the future, if they decide to pull on that thread or not. I suspect they probably will.
I don't think you cast Barry Keegan, someone wrote me an email. I don't think, apparently you don't pronounce the G. Is Kean? I don't know. Apologies. However I'm saying it, but you don't cast an actor like that. He's very talented, very much on the rise, on the up and up. He was also in the Nolan movie Dunkirk. He was in Dunkirk as well. So he's wow. He's an actor on the rise, and so you don't cast him if you're not going to use him, So I think it's smart to plan ahead and get him in now. I liked the scene. I just felt it wasn't needed, it's like we've seen so much Joker in the past few years. We didn't necessarily need another, but I still like the fact that, much like you were saying, Brian, he's placing so many pieces on the board that he can play with in the next films. And it's nice that the Joker is now on the board as well, so you don't have to worry about introducing him next time.
Yeah, no, exactly. And that it could have been any number of villains. I love the idea of going back into Arkham Asylum, and one of my favorite things in any Batman media, whether it's the Arkham Asylum games or the animation, is the shots of Batman walking through the asylum, and you see the lineup of everybody kind of posted up against their window or whatever. So you could have gone with any number of villains there. I mean, it's I guess surprising but not surprising that they went right out of the gate with the Joker. But I mean, I didn't hate it. It was fun. It felt like a post-credit scene to me. Yeah. So I was a little surprised that it was actually in the regular runtime of the movie. But I'm like I said, I'm in for the world that Matt Reeves is building. I love that he's saying all the right things to me. Mm-hmm. Talking about a Batverse, and anybody who asks him about Superman and Wonder Woman, just do the Batman world. Like I don't even need. I love all those characters. Don't get me wrong, but like, just focus on the Batverse here and build that out, and let's see those stories. There's plenty of other iterations of the character where we see him team up with the larger DC universe. I personally don't need that, from this. I like where he's going, and the fact that they now have HBO Max as an avenue to further develop some of these characters, like Penguin, like Arkham, whatever other shows come down the line. Like, awesome. Just keep building it and adding to it, and let this thing grow. And I think it's going to be a lot of fun to watch.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. We mentioned really quick the Penguin, and we all agree that Colin Farrell as the Penguin is inspired, and he was amazing. I want to hear what you guys thought of the Riddler and Catwoman as well. Jamie?
Yeah, I was just thinking actually about, how often we've seen the Joker, and, it was actually nice to have a break. But one of the things that I liked that they did in this movie was Edward's, his connection that he when Batman comes to see him in the asylum, right? And when he's locked up, he's like thinks that they're gonna bond, you know, like he has this personal connection with him, you know. And I always like that because I think that's it gets into the psyche of these characters a little bit. And obviously it's like for somebody to dress up and go out every night and to try and stop crime, like obviously that would be a person who's tormented and messed up. And clearly, you know, that Edward was a victim of his past or created by his past. And, you know, it was a great, really kind of switcheroo, like change up where you think he knows that he is Bruce Wayne and all that. And that was great. But, you know, I think that, you know, having these characters, it doesn't always have to be done, but it's honestly an easier route to show that they're disturbed. And that's kind of their purpose of doing what they're doing, is because they're not normal people. And neither is Batman. He's not a normal guy. Bruce Wayne's not a normal guy. You know, he's created from torment. Edward was created from torment. So I think as far as, you know, performance and then putting a new kind of a new Riddler out there, obviously the only other ones being the 66 and Jim Carrey versions, this was like had the most gravity, and it felt purposeful and unique enough where it wasn't just like he was just doing like kind of a quasi Joker sort of thing. Again, my biggest qualm was, I think his performance was great. My biggest qualm was probably just, you know, the suit. Really, it was just like, but everything that he did, I thought all the clues and everything was great. You know, even just somebody had pointed out that the message to Batman was actually in fireproof paper. So during the explosion that he would get it, not knowing, you know, that Bruce Wayne, who he thinks he's killing, is the same guy as Batman, that Batman would, you know, survive and to be able to read that letter. And I was like, oh, that's a great little clue there. Just to showing that psyche. So he was great. Catwoman, I thought she was great. Definitely a unique take. I thought her performance was awesome. I think I mentioned to you guys that I thought their relationship, it felt a little forced. I think more towards the end, like the romantic side of it, I felt their connection for sure. But the romantic side, even them kissing at the end, like, you know, I don't mind romance, but, you know, it's like, it didn't feel like natural to me at all at that point. I felt like they more had a bond, like her saying, oh, I have a thing for strays. That's their bond, you know, it's like they're helping each other out in these dire needs. And so I thought, you know, kind of the long motorcycle goodbye was a little bit like of an eye roll. But beyond that, I thought she did an awesome job. I think, you know, her performance was great. And I thought it was a really cool, unique take on Selina as well.
Awesome. What about you, Brian?
Yeah. Great stuff. First of all, Jamie, how dare you suggest that Frank Gorshin did not bring gravitas to his
No, you're right. I should.
That is a load of crap, and I appreciate you saying it.
You do not don't disrespect Gorshin.
Nobody can wear tights and bring that kind of insanity to a scene like that. Gorshin is the kid.
Gorshin rules now and forever. He's the
agreed.
best.
I apologize wholeheartedly. You're right.
I've long made the comment that Batman 66 is actually the most comic accurate Batman on screen. In a weird way.
I mean, that's you're not wrong depending on how you look at it. I hear you.
Somebody pointed out that was the last time we've seen all of the characters in this movie on screen. It's pretty much all those same characters.
Well, yeah. I mean, Matt Reeves revealed the villains of this movie by taking a photo of the Batman 66 exhibit in Hollywood, and it was the mannequins of Frank Gorshin's Riddler,
really?
Julie Newmar's Catwoman, and Burgess Meredith's Penguin. Yeah.
That's awesome.
So it is funny that, like, the big four from Batman the movie in 1966 are all in this movie too.
All in this one. Yeah.
It's awesome. I thought Paul Dano was great. You know, I really did think it was interesting that he didn't know that Bruce was Batman, because even Bruce thought he knew that he was Batman. That moment when Bruce realizes in the asylum, when in that interrogation scene, when he realizes that Edward doesn't know.
Mm-hmm.
Is a great performance by Robert Pattinson right there, and just kind of that you can see him flip the switch from like he feels like he's being personally attacked, and then realizing, oh, he doesn't know that I'm Bruce Wayne, and then he goes back into Batman mode instantaneously.
Yeah,
thought it was awesome. And anyway, I thought Paul Dano was great. I think he's a lot of fun. I think he does kind of he looks like a Riddler, I think as far as I think of him. I agree. His costume was not how I would have done it. It's not my favorite thing, but I see what Reeves was going for. And certainly he felt the need to conceal his identity to do what he needed to do. But again, another dangling thread, like the world now knows, what the Riddler's face looks like, and what maybe his identity is.
Guess what, Brian? Gotham loves a comeback.
Oh God.
Oh yeah.
Right. That's right.
Yeah.
I thought Edward Dano was great. I liked how even when he was had the mask and everything, he got a little silly at times, and I like that. I felt like there were little hints of kind of the Riddler, as I think of him, kind of the silly laugh or giggle or whatever.
Well, he's like almost enjoying it, because it's like all this planning, and it's like he's the puppet master, so he's really, he really played that up, which is awesome.
Yeah, I thought it was cool. I thought he was a lot of fun, and I do hope to see him again, and to see him embrace even more Riddler, embrace the Derby, as hashtag embrace the Derby.
Hey, hashtag confirmed he has the Derby in the next movie. Don't worry.
What if we all start mailing Derby hats to Paul Dano?
Derby and Kane, please. And then Selena Kyle, I thought she was great. I thought Zoe Kravitz, just the casting of her from the very beginning. You're like, oh yeah, she's. Yeah. I didn't really know her from anything outside of X-Men First Class, but
it's so easy to forget that she was in that.
I know.
I didn't remember.
She has a very small part.
Yeah.
But I thought she seems like a Catwoman type person. Like she looks like Selena Kyle, and I love the line at the end, even though Jaime, you weren't big on the romance thing. The line when she says that you're already spoken for, that's straight from the comics, and that was a great line in the books and a great line to pull and include in the movie. So kind of that push and pull of will they, won't they, between the two of them. I felt like they did have a lot of cool chemistry, even if it's not a full-on romance. I liked them working together. I liked her, turning the tables at times, to suit her own needs. That's very Catwoman-esque. Just when Bruce thinks he can trust her, she does something selfishly to suit her own desires and needs. But I mean, like I said, and we've already talked about Colin Farrell. I mean, just amazing. I mean, it was definitely one of those. Him as Penguin is up there to me with Heath Ledger as the Joker, where like I love every scene I'm watching that he's in as the Penguin, and I just want to watch him again. And that's how I felt watching Heath Ledger as the Joker's. I almost go back. I'll just go watch this again, just so I can watch Heath Ledger a little bit more. And I felt that with Colin Farrell as the Penguin. But again, all the villains, I thought they were really great.
Well, you gotta love sorry, Andy, the comic relief in those brief moments, which you don't realize you need, but man, he was brilliant. It's just a lot of tension throughout the movie, and the fact that he's just like, he really played that kingpin boss type, where he's just like, no matter how serious, Batman's storming into his office, and he's like just happy-go-lucky, not even bothered, he gets slammed against a window, and he's just like, whatever, have a nice day, You gotta love that presence that he brought to that, and the humor, it was awesome.
He's so funny. Like, take it easy, sweetheart. Like,
yeah.
There are so many good scenes in the movie, and my favorite scenes are like the Batman and Catwoman scenes on the rooftop, especially the one where he learns about her past and they learn how much they actually have in common. I think that's a great scene. That their goodbye scene, like you just said, Brian, are great. But I swear, every scene with Colin Farrell is the best scene in the movie. He's just so much fun to watch. He's having the best time, and I'm having the best time watching him.
Yeah. Andy, did you like Riddler? I mean, I know we're running short on time, but how did you feel about Riddler?
I don't like the outfit at all. I've been very clear on that. I loved the riddles. I liked that it was a serious Riddler that was actually a threat. And I liked that it was a Riddler that really challenged Batman's intellect, which is the whole point of it. But I do feel like he didn't feel as much like too strong of a character until the end, until we finally got the mask off him and we got to see Paul Dano. So I just felt like, strangely, for a 3-hour movie, I feel like I didn't get enough of him as the Riddler. And I think that when we have that one-on-one scene between Paul Dano and Robert Pattinson, I think it's a great scene. It's another really good one. But that's why I hope that Gotham loves a comeback, because I do want to see him come back and be like the full-on Riddler and not the Zodiac killer for most of the movie.
Yeah, I agree.
You know, I think, you know, one of my bigger gripes, you know, is the fact that so much was shown in the trailers from the third act of the film. To make the formal arrest of Edward Nashton such a big part of the trailers was an absolute shame. And I can't help but go into movies like this where I'm really excited, but have this internal checklist of, I haven't seen this scene before, or I know this scene is coming. And then to know that I'm like 2 hours and 45 minutes in, and there's still like 2 scenes I've seen in the trailer that I haven't seen, that drives me nuts. Mm-hmm. And I thought, you know, a lot of those, you know, just going back to one of your earlier questions, Andy, about those big Batman moments, so many of those big Batman moments, I felt like I had already seen. Mm-hmm. I knew the car was going to come plummeting through the funeral. You know, I knew Batman at some point was going to lead a group of Gotham citizens through some kind of sewer or flooded area with a red road flare. You know, I knew I was going to see a very muddy Batman looking up into the sky. Like, all these things, you're like, these were signature moments from the trailer. Well,
they even showed him helping with the rescue of like carrying that child, which is such a great moment in the film. But like, you saw it in the trailer. No, I agree.
Yeah, far too much was revealed.
Yeah, especially if you're, you know, because I know that we used to do this, or I used to do this a lot, where you're trying to avoid it the closer the movie comes. But I mean, that scene of his arrest was like a long time ago we got that scene, you know? So, and it almost deserves to be one of those scenes that they put out there and then not in the movie, or less in the movie, just because it's like, it's such a, I don't know. Yeah, I agree. It's sort of a betrayal to what a great moment it is.
Yeah. All right. Well, like you said, we are running short on time. I know you all have places to be. So I want to get some closing thoughts from you guys, and I want to hear your letter grades for the Batman. So, Jamie, final thoughts.
Yeah, overall, I think that one of the biggest issues is just I think it could have been tighter. That would have really helped a lot. Beyond that, the Riddler costume, you know, that would be if those two things were just tightened up or changed, I think that would have put it more into A+ territory. I'd give it an A-. It's still a very strong movie. I think everybody had a great presence. I mean, it's to the point where it's like, you know, the length was really just it's like a nitpick thing, you know, and as Batman fans, I'm like, well, for me, it was fine, because it's like, if it was a 6-hour movie, I'd be like, well, that's fine. You know, like, I'd still go for it. So yeah, I would give it a solid A. It's definitely, like, in terms of the legacy, I think we were ranking them and the legacy of Bat films. It's strong, right in the middle of a lot of them. I would say I'd probably put it right behind BVS extended cut. You know, so and that's kind of in the mid high to mid section for me. So but yeah, overall a great film, and I can't wait to see more.
So was it an A or an A-?
I would say an A-.
A-. Okay, cool. Brian, what about you?
Yeah, no, I really, really enjoyed it. I thought it was a ton of fun. Like I said at the beginning, I love being able to see this one with my kids and have them enjoy an opening night Batman experience. So I'm grateful that it was PG-13 and I could take my kids to see this kind of a movie, even though it was dark and violent, it still felt, I felt okay bringing my kids to it. And we really enjoyed it. And it was by far their favorite Batman experience of anything they've ever had. So I loved that. Like I said, dark film noir, detective story. I really enjoyed it. Excited for the world building. Love where it's going. I think as far as my Batman ranking of all time, I put it around number 5 or 6. It's not quite the A+ territory for me with Batman 89 and Batman Begins and The Dark Knight. So I give it an A- because I really do enjoy it, as I do all Batman movies. So it's but it's like picking your favorite kid. But I really enjoyed it. I thought the performances were so great. My nitpicks are pretty minimal on this one, and can't wait to see where they go next.
Quick question for you guys: Would you guys like to see a sequel to this, or would you like to see like something taking place in this world, but maybe a reimagining necessary? Like they could still do I guess it would have to be a sequel if it had Edward in it. But there's a part of me that's like, I get worried about sequels, and I would like to see this world again personally, but I don't know about, like, I would almost like to see another villain or him face off more against Penguin in the next movie and then save Riddler for later or something like that. What do you guys think?
Oh, yeah, I agree. Like, I want the Riddler to continue because, again, I want to see that evolution of him in really embracing that Riddler persona. But I don't think he needs to be the main antagonist next time. I like putting the Penguin more at the forefront, but I would say you still got to bring in someone new. And I don't know who that would be. We all have our favorites, but no, I don't necessarily need all exactly the same players. I do want them to bring in new folks, but I like that everyone's still out there,
Yeah, totally agree. I'm the same. I love that they're all out there. Like I said at the beginning, I'm glad nobody got killed off, because I really enjoy that anybody could show up at any point. But I think you gotta bring in some new blood each time when you do a sequel. So I don't know that I'm not sure I totally follow with what you were saying about doing a reimagining. But I want to see more from this world. Like, I want to see a sequel. If I could pick today, I go, hey, I really want to see Matt Reeves take on Robin in this world, a Dick Grayson Robin, and I'd love to see Mr. Freeze. Mr. Freeze is my favorite villain, so that's what I.
Oh yeah.
I think I'll co-sign both of those, Robin and Mr. Freeze. Yes and yes.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. I think I was posing the question because I get nervous about sequels. Obviously, The Dark Knight was proved all that wrong, and we've had sequels that are good. But I always get nervous that, like, maybe just like box that one up and then go into, Nolan was, a sequel, but it sort of was, again, I guess when you take if you have a new main villain, it's not really a reimagining of that. It's that same world. So I guess what I'm saying is, I do hope it goes more in that route and less like tying up all the loose ends of this movie into the next one. More like it's in this world and we're not necessarily addressing all of those things. We're doing, the new blood. Maybe the Penguin's the new guy. Maybe the Riddler's still in there pretty strongly, but not like just a continuation in that same way.
Yeah, I don't think you need to, nor should you tie up all the loose ends. I think that's what's exciting, is that they could go in so many different directions. Just speaking to Robin real quick, I've long wanted to see a reimagining of Robin in the cinematic world. And the last time we got really a Robin was Chris O'Donnell. I don't count the Nolan trilogy Robin, by the way. But I mean, like,
that's because it doesn't count.
Yes, thank you. Like an actual Robin, and I think the fact that part of the Wayne legacy is that the Wayne estate was converted into an orphanage. You see Bruce seeing himself in the mayor's son, and what that meant to him. So I think it's not beyond believability that Bruce could want to take on some of that legacy and shepherd and mentor, an orphan that's like him. And then the mayor's son's mom is still alive, and so I do not want him to be Robin, but I would like to see a proper Dick Grayson introduced and see Bruce take him under his wing. And a Robin in this world would be really fun and cool to see.
That'd be amazing.
Yeah, agreed. All right, guys, this was super fun.
Yeah, love this.
As always.
As always. Good to have you all back. Well, I feel like Jamie, you're not really on social media anymore. You've kind of stepped away from that, right?
Yeah.
So people can't follow you anywhere. They just have to hope you'll pop up now and then.
Yeah, exactly. I appreciate the invite, and any more invites, later on. Hopefully you'll catch me on Andy's show here.
Awesome. Well, it was good to have you back.
I appreciate it.
Brian, you do some cool stuff on Instagram.
Yeah. You can go to my Instagram at Wizard of Cross 23. I'm posting a lot of mostly my work stuff on there, things that we're having fun, events that we're creating, and some of the live drawing tutorials that I've been doing. So lots of fun stuff there.
Awesome. Well, thank you both. This has been really fun. I already told you guys where to follow me, but thank you for joining us. Thanks for downloading the show. Please do subscribe wherever you get your podcasts or follow on Apple Podcasts. And please rate and review us on Apple Podcasts. Visit holybatcast.com. Find Holy BatCast on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, or YouTube. If you got something for the Wayne Manor mailbox, we're not doing that this time, but we will do it soon. You can send that to holybatcast@rf4rm.com. Our theme music was created by the very talented Gaurav Venkateswar. His work can be found at gvtunes.com. And again, if you're looking to smell nice for your dates, your partners, whatever, go to manscaped.com. Use our promo code BATSCAPED for 20% off and free shipping. Please do that. We would certainly appreciate it. But that'll do it. On behalf of Brian and Jamie, I've been Andy. We'll see you next time. Same bat time, same bat channel. Holy BatCast is not affiliated with Warner Brothers or DC Entertainment. The views and opinions shared by the participants are theirs and theirs alone and do not represent the companies or organizations they happen to work for.
Whoa! Take it easy, sweetheart. You looking for me? See you met the twins. Boy, I hear everything they say. Ain't you? I guess we both are. How you doing? I'm Oz.